we going? All right. Recording? Okay. All right. Welcome to the September New Ulm Safety Commission meeting. We'll call it to order here. Our first order of business will be the Secretary's report, which will be the meeting minutes from the July meeting was our last meeting. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look them over. Is there any changes or amendments to it? Otherwise, we'd look for a motion to accept those.
I make a motion, we accept them.
I'll second it.
All right. No further discussion on them. All in favor of accepting the meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we'll move on to old business. Center Street and Garden Street intersection study update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission members. Just a quick update on the status of the intersection study that's being conducted at Center and Garden. The draft intersection control evaluation report, or the ICE report, has been submitted to MnDOT District 7 staff for review. We have received comment back from the traffic engineer on that report, and the Bolton & Mink is making the revisions necessary to that. So we're hoping, depending on timeline, when we get the final okay from the state, it'll be presented to you at the next meeting, whether that be October or November. So it's the update as of now. So no real major comments from MnDOT, just a couple, I guess, growth factor changes he wanted to see in that report. So Bolton & Mink is working on those revisions.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else got any questions? Otherwise, I don't believe we need to do an action on that, so
Correct.
we
Yep.
can move on to new business now. Consideration of the New Ulm Active Transportation Plan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission members. So this process started back in the summer of 2022. We received a grant, a MnDOT Active Transportation Grant for the implementation of a active transportation plan. So what that grant involved was the use of MnDOT consultants to help us formulate this plan, and it was a collaboration between the city and the Heart of New Ulm project, specifically the Coalition for Active, Safe, and Healthy Streets. Again, this was an eight-month process with the CASH's members and community members and city staff. And the main purpose of this plan is to have recommended procedures and whatnot to promote active, healthy lifestyles within our city infrastructure. You know, the whole plan is included within the packet for review. I'm not going to go through it page by page, so I'm going to just touch on some highlight sections. Really, the executive summary is included on page 4. In the last couple paragraphs there, you can see this plan. It's a living document. It's establishes priorities on infrastructure improvements and things we can do as a community to make walking and biking safer and more accessible. Also identifies routes within the city that are in the most need of improvements as well, to connect those unconnected areas of the city and complete our non-motorized infrastructure network. Oops. Sorry. Usually do this as a PowerPoint, so I have to work with a PDF, so it's a little. So one thing that's really kind of the focus of this plan is the safe system approach. So it's kind of moving our design practices away from focusing on just vehicles and including everybody. It's very similar to what we do with the Complete Streets policy when we design. We're designing these roadway infrastructure segments not only for vehicles but also pedestrians and bicyclists as well. There's sections in here that talk about speed and, again, the safe systems approach, infrastructure additions similar to the demonstration project at First North and Garden Street, things that can help also slow traffic down and provide pedestrian safety at the same time. So things like the mini roundabout up by the high school, wider boulevards, sidewalks, off-street biking facilities instead of on-street. through here. So and then section 2 really talks about our existing infrastructure segments today. Again, talking about the complete streets policy, the safe routes to school plan. This will kind of work, some items from the comp plan update that's being worked on right now as well was kind of incorporated into this. So together, we're kind of hoping the comp plan and the active transportation plan, they're going to kind of marry and have the same type of goals when it comes to active transportation type of infrastructure. So that's why this slide, you can see the comp plan is noted, because we are trying to do, achieve the same goals with these two documents. And then also, going back to this slide, capital improvement plan, and that's what we're going to discuss later today as well. So here's kind of just a snippet of walking and rolling by the numbers. So we have approximately 111 miles of sidewalks, 6.5 miles of, that's off-street trails, 24 miles of on-street bike routes. So it's just kind of some neat data that kind of puts everything in perspective. There's survey data that's included with this as well. So the Heart of New Ulm puts surveys together and shared those with the public. I'm not sure exactly how many survey respondents we had, but these were some of the results that were included of how people move. Again, the vast majority would bike more if it was safer, so that's always something we try to work on. Some more survey data. So transportation challenges. We know there's certain segments within the city that are a challenge. And those neighborhoods that we kind of called out specifically within this plan, one of them is Oakwood Estates down by Craft. It's kind of a disconnected area of the city just because we don't have sidewalk on Bridge Street to help funnel people by walking or biking to Hy-Vee and beyond. You know, that segment, just kind of as an aside, is difficult with the lack of right-of-way we have. It's very tight and there's a lot of underground utilities. So things like that create challenges as we design projects and trying to find homes for things within our restraint constraints. Also gaps in the bike trail. So the bottom picture on the slide, that's by Burger King, kind of that kind of goofy area of the bike loop where we go from on street and we have to jump a curb. I'm happy to say that jump in the curb will be taken care of next year with the 20th South Street project. We'll at least get a ramp in there to get people up on that sidewalk. And obviously Center and Garden. And then the lack of east-west routes, that's not necessarily something we can change because of our topography, but it is noted that where we do have the connecting streets from below and up on the hill, that we try to accommodate all those users when we do make infrastructure improvements. And obviously Broadway is always going to be a more difficult as corridor. We have to work with the state on that, being that that's a state highway. There was a lot of discussion kind of during all the workshops and whatnot about downtown. How can we make Minnesota Street more accessible for everybody? So there's, you know, the parking that's down there now makes it difficult, especially if you're trying to bike. So ways we can change that to either back in angled parking or changing that corridor as a whole. The comp plan update is specifically studying. That's one of the areas the comp plan is going to look at. So through that comp plan update and the active transportation plan, future improvements can be made that would make that corridor more inviting for non-motorized traffic. Existing conditions map. I think we're all well aware of gaps that may be in the bike routes or in the bike loop system. These comments were received. I think these comments were taken from the comp plan update. So we kind of used the data that was already compiled instead of creating new data. Building the network. Vision and goals is really creating that active transportation network, creating those opportunities for people to get out either if it's walk, bike, roll, however they choose to move. The consultant included this slide of what could the future hold. So the green and brown lines are existing infrastructure. The kind of magenta or pink could be future improvements that are made, whether it's on or off-street biking facilities. Implementation priorities, obviously safety is the number one priority that was identified. Significance, equity, ADA, difficulty and cost, that's probably from a implementation standpoint, that's the most difficult hurdle to come across. Priorities and projects, we kind of discussed already. Again, that's just laying out what are some of the priorities we should look at. That kind of goes along with the Safe Routes to School plan, some of those identified priorities within that plan, and also the Complete Streets policy and other projects that we've been working on. A lot of these are also in the comp plan as well. There is a whole section in here. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this one, but it's got a whole bunch of references that we can use as designers to help us design these type of infrastructure improvements. There's everything from the AASHTO Green Book to the bicycle design manual and everything like that. Different traffic calming measures are talked about as well. Mid-block crossing, a lot of these we've implemented throughout the city or going to be implementing on future projects as well. Here's that head out angled parking section that we talked about just a little bit ago. I believe it was St. James that they did this through their downtown when MnDOT did a highway project. As far as I know, it's been received well. It's just, it gets the head of the car out so you can see what's coming instead of backing up blind out into the street. And then there's a whole section on shifting the culture. I'll really call this more of an education type of a section, which again, it's part of the Safe Routes to School plan as well. So the main thing to take from this is we have a whole bunch of other standalone documents, and this kind of merges everything into one. It's changing that culture, and educating people that the proper ways to walk, bike, and roll, and whatnot as well. And then the final section is moving forward. There's a whole list of grant opportunities and things like that. A lot of those that we have applied for and received, such as the active transportation grant for this plan. And then also we did end up receiving the active transportation grant funding to install the RRFBs, the rapid rectangular flashing beacons. Those will be hopefully installed this fall if we can get plans out the door. We were notified that we received that grant award last month, so we've been so that would be kind of a new type of facility that would be installed within the city, kind of around the trail crossings and routes on the Safe Routes to School routes as well. I know I went through that pretty quick. It's 54 pages. I didn't want to waste all your time here today. But if there are specific questions, I can try to answer them today. I guess what we're hoping, if the commission's comfortable with moving forward with this, is eventually getting a recommendation that we can take to the city council for adoption. Well, I really feel like I threw a lot out at you in a short period of time, so I apologize for that. But
Well, it really is a comprehensive report if you sit and read the whole thing.
Yeah,
and
yep.
There's a lot of good ideas in it, so I think it would be worthwhile pursuing.
Wonderful. Yeah, it was, the consultants that MnDOT gave us, for lack of a better term, they're not from here. Or I think the main one was from the Des Moines area. So they really had that outsider perspective and brought different ideas to the table and things for it during the collaboration phase and things like that, that it was a good process to go through.
think the interesting thing is, you're educating, and I read through, quite a bit of this, and it is a good plan, and I think, even like the backing in, down the main street would be a good idea. I mean, there's a lot of companies and stuff that use, back into your spot so your eyes are forward first, but I just think of the city of New Ulm and educating people that they're actually got to back in.
Be a lot of change.
It'll be a lot of change, and it will take some time, but I mean, the
Right.
philosophy is good,
Yep.
And
that's what a lot of this is. That's a very good point, Commissioner, is that a lot of what's recommended, it's changed from the norm. And it's going to take a while to get that buy-in. So that's kind of really strikes to the education portion. Is if we're going to move forward with something different, it's kind of on us as staff and designers to share that with the public.
Yeah.
And get the word out that, hey, we're looking at something different. And it's similar to the roundabout at Center and Garden. There's a group that wants it. There's a group that, we can't haul grain in the town down, it's not going to work. And so it's a lot of education and working together, collaborating together.
I think, again, that even if you did that downtown with backing in, I think there's probably more accidents that happen with people trying to back out that can't see versus a person pulling ahead and then backing in,
Right.
you know.
I would agree with that. Yeah, because you're backing 9 times out of 10, it's blind.
Yep.
Especially if you're a small car next to a truck, hope they stop.
Yeah, this way you can pull out and you're looking right at the
Yep.
traffic coming at you. And so you will see a biker if they're coming down that
Right.
one-way street a lot quicker
And
too.
yeah, that's the thing that does make downtown tough is, well, technically you shouldn't be biking against traffic, and that's
Right.
kind of a disconnect, especially if you're coming from the south. So,
Is there a little bit of conversation, I didn't find that in the plan of, currently as we sit, with how Minnesota Street sits, but, to bring more of that bike path temporarily or right now down German and then bring them in
that's-
up the side streets?
yeah, so the designated route right now is coming up to Third South, down the German, and kind of around that way, to kind of keep that bike traffic, especially the wrong way bike traffic off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty as well to going the wrong way down it, but
Yeah.
kind of pick and choose your times and know when's a good time to do that and when's not. But, yeah. And that, going back to the comp plan, with downtown being a major focus in the comp plan, that's going to have different outlooks on what downtown can look like and things like that as well.
Right.
So that's something we'd be working with the community development and planning departments on moving forward.
Okay.
So, this report seems more like it lays out what a lot of our deficiencies are and things really well, and gives a lot of ideas and stuff, but specifics, would that be more the comprehensive plan covers
The
that?
Specifics, well, yes and no, kind of, and the capital improvement plan.
Sure.
But this kind of gives us our guidance, if we are doing a project on Minnesota Street, here's are the things we need to look at. Or if we're doing, or even on Garden Street, that's slated for 2027, between Center and Fifth, we're gonna do that. The roadway doesn't necessarily work the way it is now for all users. So here's a bunch of tools we can use. Let's make this more accessible for everybody. Because I think even with the demonstration project that's down there, I've heard nothing but good input from that. So, it's doing, whether it's small or bigger infrastructure improvements, but this gives us kind of a template to go off of moving forward.
Yeah, and I think it does it really well. I think I can support going forward with this. Any more discussion?
I'm good with it. It's very thorough. It's good.
All right, I would like a motion then, if we want to go forward.
I'd make that motion to go forward with the active transportation action plan for City of New Ulm.
To recommend it to the city council.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
All right, any other comment? Otherwise, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? All right, we will send that to the city council. Next is the preliminary 2024 capital improvement plan consideration.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. So included within your packet was so a couple different things. We'll start with the Complete Streets policy that was adopted back in 2016. I included that just so you have the background of kind of what our Complete Streets policy is and kind of what our next step is here with this capital improvement plan. So with the capital improvement plan and the Complete Streets policy, our goal is to have you guys look at what we're proposing for 2024. And is what we are proposing, is that meeting what our purpose of that Complete Streets policy is? Are we accounting for all users in our design and our proposed projects? That brings me to the list of projects that we have slated for 2024 through 2028. I did include certain sections of the plan, the draft plan, explaining what type of projects we're looking at. So I'll just kind of give a quick run through of what we're looking at for 2024. First one is German Street from Center to 3rd North Street. So that's going to be a complete roadway and utility reconstruction. Obviously, the project is downtown. It's got sidewalks and everything already, so we're really not proposing any significant changes there. We have aged infrastructure that needs replacement. Next one is probably the only one that we need to discuss here tonight is Valley Street from Center Street to 3rd North Street. That segment, we have incompleted segments of sidewalk. We also have rail crossings and very tight right-of-way widths to try to fit anything in. So I'm going to pull up, let's pull up Google Maps here quick so we can look at that a little bit closer. So my question, I guess, for the commission on this segment is, one, we're planning just a roadway reconstruct, a full-depth reclamation, so we're going to grind up the existing pavement and aggregate and pave a new roadway surface. But one thing I want the commission to consider and maybe provide a little bit of direction is, do you want us to pursue installing sidewalks on this segment? As noted, it's incomplete. We don't have a full network of sidewalk in this area. We do have items such as railroad crossing that's going to provide some difficulty, and that's a private spur line that's not owned by CP Rail. As of right now, we aren't necessarily including anything, but
Could you get it on the one side? Because I know, like, the distillery, Black Frost, does not call that parking there.
right, yep. So, I mean, that would be up for discussion. It kind of varies from block to block on which side
Right.
makes sense, which makes it even more difficult. Because once we get past First North, then we run into Firmenich. There is sidewalk along Firmenich. And then, again, in this block, then it gets really tight on the west side where we have a building that's maybe even in the right-of-way. We really don't have room any longer on that west side. So moving it from one block to the other, switching sides, isn't
Forces
necessarily
people to
that
cross
conducive.
over.
And then we really run out of room as we move towards 3rd, because that's where the railroad right-of-way starts coming into the Valley Street right-of-way, and it gets real tight down there.
And it ends down there then.
Yep. So my initial thought on this segment was probably the east side. If we were going to look at that. But again, the CT center is right up on the right-of-way line too, so it is really tight. So I don't necessarily know how much walking traffic is down there. The trail is half a block away as well. So there is infrastructure in the area. Front Street, just down the block, has full sidewalk down there as well. So it's kind of a abnormality with a lot of different things going on. So just looking for a little guidance from the commission if you think one side would work better, or if we should just leave it as is and do the roadway. That's a complete option too. I guess from a staff
Got to-
perspective, if we were going to move forward with it, I guess I would recommend the east side. But again, I don't know how critical it is. So sorry, Commissioner Giesecke.
Well, it was, okay, so with the CTE center down there, you know, which is, you know, obviously the training center and stuff for the high school, are you into some issues in reference to, you know, Disabilities Act and stuff like that with the handicap, that you have to provide something because you have, you know, youth or students going in there?
No, that's more, once we get off the right of way, that their parking lots are required to have those facilities, which I believe they do.
Okay.
I don't think there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in that area.
That's what my thought was
Because
too.
I sometimes walk my dog there, so we just either walk on the boulevard or walk in the street, and I very rarely see anybody
Okay.
else if I go that way,
That
because
was-
I walk all over.
Sure, and that was kind of my thoughts too. It's, you know, where's the cost benefit and where, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, if there's sidewalk there, people would use it, but is it a person a day? Is it a person a week? But,
Yeah.
so that's why I wanted, it's kind of a, normally I would say no matter what, we'll put sidewalk in, but this one, this location's a little bit, I'm gonna call abnormal.
When you're crossing over that railroad
Yep.
Yeah, I
spur
honestly
twice.
don't
no matter
know
what
if we need
side.
it there, yeah.
And the CTE traffic, that's by car, it's not really sidewalk
Yeah,
traffic.
the kids are either driving their own vehicles there or they're bused there, so they're using, well, if the bus is dropping them off, they're offloading on the street or in the parking lot there, so. And I should note that CT Center, this is their parking lot too, off of Front Street, so they have plenty of off-street parking at the facility. So I'll let you guys, I'll let you mull that over a little bit. I'm going to keep going through the list. Next one is 12 South Street from Minnesota to Valley again, a roadway reconstruct with a FDR, full sidewalk on both sides. I don't see need to change anything there, and that's also the same for North Broadway from 19th to 20th North. Really a continuation from the project that's happening right now. The next items on the list are alleys. Really don't pertain to the complete streets policy. And then we get into our miscellaneous concrete and ADA sidewalk improvements. So that section of the proposed project includes sidewalk improvements related to the street department's surface reconstruction project. So we look at our deficient ramp list, and if we're doing a street segment adjacent to that, we'll make those improvements at that time. That takes care of the USA project. We've previously discussed the 20th South Street project from Broadway to the Minnesota River Bridge. We have just an update on that. We're at 90% plans with the consultant. So we're getting close to getting that project out for bids. Next item on the list is 2024 MnDOT project. That's the roundabout construction at Highland and 14. And then we jump into the surface reconstruction project. Again, those are projects done by this city street department where they rip off the existing bituminous grade and pave it right back. Generally, most of these segments have sidewalks, at least have the pedestrian ramps at the corners that we'll update as part of the USA project. Next item on the list is the rec trail project that we received the grant funding for, and that's going to go from 20th South to 7th South. I have that highlighted as a bituminous mill and overlay. It's either going to be a mill and overlay or a FDR. We are waiting on the material sample test results on that before we kind of choose which path we're going down. Rest of the items on the list really don't pertain, but there's some storm sewer improvements and then some airport improvement projects as well. So that's a quick run through of the 24 projects. Again, the next following pages are putting all of that verbiage into the list form. And then it's got the list for 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28 as well. So it kind of is a comprehensive plan of what we hope to do in the next 5 years. When people ask, I always say the next year is written in ink. The next 4 years are written in pencil because it can change depending on if we have infrastructure failures or water main that blows up or sanitary, we have problems and have to jump around, but that's, 25 is almost in ink. That's very close to that, as far as the USA projects are concerned, and that includes Bridge Street. So that'll be a segment we look at, where can we fit sidewalk in and that unconnected network, but we're a little ways out on that one, so. So I would be happy to entertain any questions, or if you want to have further discussion on that Valley Street segment, we could certainly do that. But ultimately, Mr. Chair, what I'd be looking for was just, if the commission chooses to do so, it'd be your concurrence that the plan meets the purpose of the Complete Streets policy.
If we were to do that, do we have to amend Valley if we don't need the sidewalks, or if we agree?
No, I think we can, that'd be when I present to the city council, then at that time that the commission considered sidewalk and elected to do X, so, or recommended to do X,
Okay.
whether that's install sidewalk or leave as is. And ultimately, the city council will provide me the direction they want to see.
Sure. All right, any more discussion or questions?
I know, again, a lot of data that I'm just throwing at you and feel like I'm talking a long time, so.
I think that just the Valley Street, you know, in that section there just is a very tough section to try and squeeze sidewalks in there. And you got a lot of buildings that are, you know, sitting in that old setback. You know, if they were taken down, that would change the game. But right now, there's no change in that. I don't think so. I think it'd be a lot of wasted cost to even try and get it squeezed in there. You know, as long as the sidewalks are serviceable on every side of it, that you can come into it. And Joey satisfied the question on the CTE center, as far as that goes, is their safe access. You know, I think I'd be good not putting sidewalks in there through that area.
Yeah, I think I agree. So do we want to have a motion that we move everything forward with the change to the sidewalk? Or that's our recommendation?
Yeah, that's our recommendation. I'd make that motion that, you know, exclude the sidewalks from that section, just unless they can come up with a good alternative plan. I just don't see a good one through that zone, based on building setbacks and everything else that are already pre-existing. So,
Okay, so that's your motion.
correct.
Is that
I got it.
is that worded
Yeah.
right?
Works for me. Yep.
Okay. All right, do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Otherwise, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Okay, that is the end of our agenda. And, I don't have when our next meeting is.
So, not sure yet. It depends on how the intersection control report goes. It may be it's either going to be next month in October or
Okay.
November. I'm hoping October, and I know Commissioner Kaler cannot be there for that meeting, so we will do another poll if
Okay,
we can achieve a quorum for that meeting or not. So,
so the plan for now is normal
yeah, so that would be,
October time.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm really hopeful October 5th would be the date of the next meeting. So,
Okay.
to be determined, though, at this point.
All right, and since there's no further agenda, I